Hi, welcome back to High on Utah. I'm Heather Groom, and I'm happy to have you here today. I have a very special guest today. Her name is April Benencosa, and I kind of know her whole family, really. So, April is a good friend of mine and one of those people that you call when you need advice about life and happiness and all things. I would say, I don't want to say my age. Maybe I do. Should I say my age? But I'm in my early 50s. And I feel like, I've kind of gone through a lot of, I don't like to say midlife crisis, but I would say kind of midlife awakenings. And we'll talk about that. But just, I'm trying to get better habits as far as communication, as far as understanding what I'm trying to do with my life. I don't think anybody else out there probably struggles with this. I'm joking. Because I think a lot of people out there kind of in that same, position, and especially maybe after COVID, getting back social again is what I call it. It's like, oh, I used to be really social. Maybe I need to do that again. So anyway, April's just one of those good, close friends of mine, just very wise, and she's got a coaching business. She'll tell us a little bit about what she does. And so I'm anxious to introduce her. But like I said, I know April and the family, and April is she's just a rock star. So, April, so tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm 45, and I also went through a midlife awakening transformation. Really more just like finding myself. And I did hair for 24 years. I own 5 salons, and I wanted to do hair since I was a little kid because I really loved to help women feel beautiful.
Which is funny because I'm also a licensed
Yeah.
cosmetologist. Most people don't realize this. So I have my license still. So we kind of bond on that
Yeah, and that's why we
also.
have both such great hair.
Yes, right?
Yeah. But doing hair for so long, I just saw so many women come and look in the mirror, and they just deeply hated themselves.
Oh,
And
makes me sad.
yeah, and I had women who were like, turn me away from the mirror. Like they couldn't even look at themselves in the mirror. And I just thought, there's more for me to do than like make their hair pretty. I really
Yeah.
want to help get to the root cause. So I got really into the coaching business. I did a ton of Tony Robbins. I did a ton of Landmark. And then I went through NLP. And then I did a somatic coaching training that's unconscious limiting beliefs, mindset, because a lot of it starts in the mind, a lot of projection work, but a lot of inner child work, a lot of tenderness, a lot of compassion, because we're so mean to ourselves. And so just really helping people like love all parts of themselves. Like there's no bad parts of you.
I
And
love that.
so yeah, I switched to that about 3 years ago, and it's been really beautiful, and I really love
Oh,
doing it.
well,
So.
and maybe explain a little bit about somatic
Mhm.
because I was not very familiar with that. Since then, I've actually had a few somatic sessions, kind of like almost like it's like a massage,
Mhm.
kind of.
Yeah.
But it was really beneficial for me, and so maybe you can explain that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So there's three ways of learning and knowing. So there's the knowing in the mind, and then there's the knowing in the heart. Then there's the knowing where you embody it all, right? So a
I
lot of
love
people are
that.
like, oh, I'm reading these books, I'm doing these podcasts, I'm doing all these things, but they haven't fully embodied it. So
Mm,
somatics has a lot of different things. It's just soma means body. So you can get, my sister Brooke does psychosomatics, which is mind body, where it is more like a massage. The way I do it is more you drop into the feeling through breath work, through creating safety, and you allow the container of safety to feel the emotion fully. So, Gabor Mate always says, we don't need to get feeling better. We need to get better at feeling.
ooh, I love that.
So, yeah, it's just
Okay.
more of like allowing yourself, and it only takes 90 seconds to fully feel a feeling if you don't
Mm.
have the story with it. So, when you drop the story, you drop into the body, into the sensation, 90 seconds, the emotion leaves, the feeling leaves.
Yeah, and we were talking just right before we started rolling on this podcast, and maybe we can kind of go into that a little bit deeper because just even it's hard, like with life right now. Like I think a lot of people are struggling with anxiety, depression. I think COVID did a number on us. I think we kind of went all inward. And a lot of us, we spent time cooking brownies. That's basically what I did, I think, during COVID. And then I started selling real estate again. But I noticed that even my social life, because really COVID dragged on for a long time.
Mhm.
And I think that, it impacted a lot of people's psyches. And I've had a lot of clientele that also have even switched jobs and careers.
Mhm.
And A lot of divorces, I hate to say that, and because of it, sometimes it's the right thing. And right now, actually, I've been doing a lot of work right now with divorcing clientele.
Mhm.
People kind of made it through COVID, and then they kind of said, "Hey, maybe this isn't working, or goals are different, or things like that." And so this may not be real estate related today on my podcast, and I like doing these kind of episodes where I really love to just introduce my cool friends, and people that I know in my life that have made an impact on me and that are helping me, because even I noticed, and I'm going to be a little more vulnerable than usual during this podcast today, but for me, it started when Brent had been laid off with his job, kind of unexpectedly. It was really difficult. It was his identity really for
Mhm.
about 20 years.
Mhm.
And it took a number on, it was really difficult for him, but then it also was really difficult on me because I didn't know how to help. And so I would love kind of your thoughts and ideas on how to help ourselves
Mhm.
in that situation, and then kind of how to help our loved ones
Yeah.
and people as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all is related how you do life, right? So, like your job and how you relate with your family and how you relate to clients and how you relate to the world, like it's all about intimacy, intimacy with self and safety. And so I had a similar experience. I did hair for so long, and then when I quit doing hair, I lost a lot of my identity. And I also am going through a divorce, and so a lot of those
Yeah,
same things of just me finding what do I love with me without all the programming, right? Of like the world telling, you need to be this certain way or your parents or however it shows up. Like, and it's really hard in patriarchal world to have the masculine lose his job and then you have to step up into your masculine and then the dynamic changes. And so there's a lot of grief, there's a lot of
yeah,
learning, there's a lot of new ways of relating with each other and beautiful for both of you that you were able to hold each other through that and grow through that and then
yes,
come out the other side as like different people who relate to each other differently now, but like in a more whole way, right?
right,
So
right.
a lot of it's just connection to self. And if I'm looking outside of myself for my job to give me a sense of purpose or identity, which I was, and it sounds like that's what
I
Brent
think a
was.
lot of people
Yeah.
do. To
Yeah.
be honest, I
Yeah.
think that, I mean, I think myself, I even, it's like sometimes I forget. It's like, oh, hey, I'm a real person, hey, and I
Mm-hmm.
want to do these other things, right? And I think I had kind of a moment a few years ago where I was in a goal planning session, just, with some friends at my brokerage, and I remember they gave us like a minute or two to like write down our goals. So it was kind of like, okay, now you're writing a spiritual goal. And now you're going to write, something you want to do that's, maybe physical and work related and things. And there were basically 7 areas. And I remember I really struggled
Mm-hmm.
with identifying what I wanted to accomplish,
Mm-hmm.
because I think sometimes we hear the word goal. And I'm talking for myself, but I hear the word goal, and sometimes I'm like, ugh, it's
Yeah.
like it kind of has this, I don't know, kind of like a feeling around it, because I
Mm-hmm.
think we all think of like New Year's goals
Mm-hmm.
and resolutions,
Mm-hmm.
and how many times we haven't done those things,
Mm-hmm.
and then also it's just like, I don't know, it's just one of those things where but for me, I realized I needed a little help when I really struggled to identify goals for myself.
Mhm,
And what I mean, and maybe it's more like benchmarks. And I've
mhm.
actually been trying to reframe even just the words I'm using around that,
Yeah.
because I've told Brent, I said, let's look at like some benchmarks or things that we, or accomplishments or things that
Yeah.
that are important to us. But I feel like a goal feels like it's almost like a kicking, it's like
Yeah.
I think of like soccer,
Yeah,
right?
I
When we
like
like kick a
vision.
goal.
So, like, having a vision for
Yes.
my life is how I feel. Like, I want to have a vision of how my life is going to feel instead of, like, a goal that I'm going to hit
I
because
like
that
that.
allows a lot of the feminine allowing of, like, the universe to surprise you or God to surprise you
Right.
or, like, new things to come in that, like, weren't on your SMART goal list. And
Yes.
so that's kinda how I've reframed
Yeah,
it
I
for
like
myself.
that. I
Yeah.
like that because I think a lot of it is more. vision. Like I'm kind of like, okay, where am I going
Mhm.
and where am I heading
Yeah.
to? And it can be scary
Yeah.
too. I
Yeah.
mean, I think, times like when Brent got laid off, I think we were just all of a sudden like, okay, hang on, we were in kind of this groove
Mhm.
and then we weren't. And then we were like, okay, now what?
Mhm.
And is this time that you switch careers? Is it not a career shift? Is it,
Mhm.
and we had even discussed him working with me or doing different things, but it was like, okay, but I don't think I knew how to really ask myself those questions.
Mhm.
And I think that's important for people to have that ability, right?
Mhm.
So maybe what are some recommendations that you have? Like what are like if somebody's in that right now, I like that you kind of said, you step back a little bit, like take a deep breath and
Mhm.
maybe talk a little bit about the 90 seconds.
Yeah, so it's like how I like visuals. So if you're looking at a picture like this, you can't really see the picture, right? You're just like,
Right.
oh, it's like some black and some gray or whatever. So you have to give yourself some
Some
space to
distance.
see what's actually going on. And it's really hard to do that when you're in like fight or flight. So breath is the best, quickest way to get to your body and presence. So it's all really just about being present with what's now. Because when we suffer, we're suffering anxiety, all of those things. It's fear of the future.
That's what I was going
Or
to say. What is
yeah,
anxiety? So I love that.
yeah.
It's kind of like a fear of the future or
Yeah, it's
kind of
fear of
a
the future
unknown.
from the past. So like you're bringing
Okay.
your past of like, oh, this happened to me before. This is going to happen to me again in the future. So if you can just
Mm,
come to now, I always put one hand on my stomach, one hand on my heart, and just what's real now? Like in
love
this
that.
moment, I'm okay. In this
Okay.
moment, like I'm not homeless, I'm not starving, I'm not safe, right? Like sometimes we like our monkey mind wants to find things that are wrong
Yes.
and there's a lot going on in the world energetically and a lot of fear
Absolutely.
and people live in fear. So you can be in either fear or love. And so fear is just the absence of love. So love can only exist in the present moment. So if you just can bring yourself back to the present, and it's okay if it swirls off
Ooh,
again
I
and
love that. There's so many
yeah.
little okay, wait.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I gotta like reiterate
Yeah.
because I love all the little tidbits that you just threw out. So love exists in the present, which
Mhm.
I love that. I
Mhm.
mean, that to me speaks, to me and resonates with me because even last night, I find myself sometimes fearing something way ahead.
Mhm.
And then I'm even like, and then I get mad at myself. Maybe I'm the only
Mhm.
one that does this. Then I'm mad at
For sure.
myself because then I'm like, well, Heather, why are you thinking about this? It's not,
Mhm.
this isn't until the summer, or
Mhm.
in 3 months out or
Mhm.
something. And then I kind of panic though.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I seem to when I was younger. I don't know. Maybe I just didn't. I wasn't paying attention to life. I don't know. But it didn't seem like I had those kind of moments. I have more of them now,
Mhm.
and maybe it's because I've read different books. They call it this kind of like your second half of life, right? And I read this book. It's called Falling Upward by Richard Rohr. I don't know if you've
I
ever read
haven't.
that, but
Uh-uh.
really interesting book, and basically talks about like your second half of life and how a lot of people they get to a point and then they kind of go, okay, what am I doing? And they
Mhm.
have a moment, right? And then they say, okay, but it doesn't need to be a crisis. Like I said, I don't love that word. It's just I call it like an awakening or kind of looking and reevaluating,
Yeah.
right? But I love that you just said that about kind of bringing back to the present
Mhm.
because I think that kind of helps ground you. And one of
Yeah.
the things, interestingly enough, that really Brent would even tell you is that one of the things that really helped him was breath work.
Mhm.
And so people
Mhm.
kind of go, what? What is breath work? And what is that? But, we have little apps on our phone. And
Mhm.
sometimes, breath work is awesome. Like
Yeah,
I do
so
it
good.
even like to go to sleep sometimes. Like if you have like your mind is going a million
Mhm.
miles an hour, which I struggle with a lot of times.
Mhm.
Like I lay down and then I'm like, oh, I have these 10 work things
Mhm.
or new ideas or whatever. And so sometimes I just need to kind of calm my mind.
Mhm.
And I know we've talked about that as well, but just like different breath work apps or just
Yeah.
like breathing, and just really concentrating. And then I can go to sleep. And
Yeah.
I actually sleep really well
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
So I love that. Okay. And then, and we were talking also a little bit about grief
Mhm.
as well,
Mhm.
because I think people can, get trapped in that. I just this last week, about a week ago, one of my close friends passed away of a brain tumor, and it's been really hard. And grief kind of hits you unexpectedly.
Mhm.
Um, and so I have a lot of clients that are dealing with some really heavy things
Yeah.
right now as well. And so I'd love to hear of your advice on grief as well.
Yeah. Well, so just real quick, breath work is somatic as well. So
Okay.
it's happening in the body. So it's just that's a somatic practice. So breath work is a really good way to get into the present moment. And with grief, the hard thing with grief is it's so different for everyone, and everyone experiences it so different. And a lot of people avoid their own grief. They kind of give themselves like a week to be sad, and then they're like, I need to get back to work and I need to be happy for my kids. So I'm going to put on a smile, and they push it down.
Mhm.
So it's you can't be uncomfortable. You can't be comfortable with someone else's feelings if you're not comfortable with your own feelings. So not a lot of people can hold space for grief because they haven't allowed
Mhm.
themselves their own grief. So I've gotten really comfortable with grief the last 2 years, which has been difficult. I've had to create a lot of safety in my body and a lot of permissioning to just I'll pull over. I'll be like driving and fine, and then so my mom has stage 4 cancer, and I'm going through a divorce of a 15-year of my best friend, and so I'm going through a lot of grief right now. And I'll be driving, and then I'll just feel this wave of grief, and I pull over on the
Yeah.
side of the freeway or the side of the road, and I'm like, "Okay, grief is here." And I just
Right.
let myself feel it, I just let myself go to the bottom of the grief, and I just know, but you have to
Do you just acknowledge it? Is that
yeah.
the best way? And do you vocalize it?
I mean, I do a lot of so, in embodiment and somatic, there's a lot of breath, movement, sound. So sound is a really important way of getting out emotions. So I will let myself wail,
Oh,
and if I
wow.
need to scream or however, but I think what people fear is that they're going to get lost in the grief,
Yes.
right? So if you can just give yourself like a time frame. Right?
Mhm.
Because you can get lost in the grief. I could cry in bed all day some days, and I just, like,
Right.
can't
Right.
not people, you have kids, you have businesses, you have all these
Mhm.
things, so then they just don't feel it at all. But I think if
Like
you
they
can
kinda stuff it down,
yeah, so if you can
right?
give yourself a container, like, "Okay, for an hour, I'm gonna let myself feel grief. Like, it's coming
Mhm.
up, it's here. How productive am I really gonna be? How great am I gonna be at showing this house when I'm shoving down this grief anyway?"
Yeah.
So even if it's, like, for 5 minutes, like, I'm just gonna pull over, let myself cry for 5 minutes, breathe, presence back to safety. It's always like, where do you feel
So is
safe in
that
your
what
body?
you do? You kind of just
Yeah.
breathe out,
Mhm.
kind of just tell yourself, maybe
Yeah.
just hold your heart.
Mhm.
I know we've talked about that, and that
Yeah.
actually just even holding your heart
Or, like, hugging
or
yourself.
yeah, yeah, I was actually really surprised, but even when I was feeling a lot of grief
Mhm.
and for my friend and her family, and I just remember just grabbing my heart and
Mhm.
just kind of breathing through it, and just kind of letting myself feel those feelings
Yeah.
as well,
Yeah.
but just being in my body,
Mhm.
kind of aware of that
Well,
as well.
being with yourself in it. So, like, we are whole, complete, and perfect beings, and there's part of us that's feeling grief. And how I like to think of it is like an ocean, and there's a wave called grief. There's also a wave called joy and pleasure, right? So, like, they're all waves, and
Hmm.
we are the ocean. So, like, when you can separate yourself from the emotion, I am not angry. I'm feeling an emotion called anger. Like,
Mm.
I am not grief. I'm feeling an emotion called grief. Then you can be the one who holds yourself and hold the grief.
I love
And then
that
you
because
don't get
then
lost
you're
in it.
kind of identifying
Mhm.
that you are not the grief, but
Yeah.
that you're feeling grief.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so, ooh, I love that. That's like really powerful
Yeah.
because then um, you're basically saying, okay, I'm me
Mhm.
and this is okay,
Yeah.
to feel
Yeah,
that.
like, I'm Heather, and
Right.
I'm feeling an emotion called grief, and I'm gonna allow myself 5 minutes to feel the grief because that's what's real for me now. So,
Yeah.
like, what's real for me right now is this feeling called grief, and I'm gonna allow myself to feel it, and not I won't get lost in it, like,
Yeah.
just give myself 5 minutes, and then if I need 10, I can take 10. Sometimes you
Okay.
do need a whole day,
Yeah.
like, you know?
So just kind of knowing
Mhm.
and being able to do that. But I really love that because that to me speaks, it seems like I think that's the hard part about grief. We try to control it,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's one of those emotions that is not. easily
Nope.
controlled. And when it creeps in,
Mhm.
it's really hard. And I think also like anxiety, I think a lot of people kind of, as we touched on, even with COVID and things, I
Mhm.
think, um, like I remember going back out during, this is probably in like 2022 or 23, and being in large group situations. And what's
Mhm.
funny is I still, even now, like, I'm always like a little more aware, I
Mhm.
think, in a large
Mhm.
group setting. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, does that person have a cold? Okay, does that
Yeah.
person sick? Is
Yeah.
that, but, I think, it made me more aware, which there's some good things
Mhm.
about that.
Mhm.
But then also I've had some friends that have really struggled
Mhm.
getting back into kind of a social mode and they've just really struggled with depression
Mhm.
too, as
Yeah.
well. And I think people lost a lot of things, and people
Mhm.
lost family during
Yeah.
COVID. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've close friends of mine had parents that
Mhm.
passed away with COVID. Brent's cousin passed away with COVID.
Mhm.
And so I think it kind of tied in kind of anxiety
Mhm.
as well as grief, and so, but I'd love to kind of know just the anxiety. Would you do kind of the same thing as well? Would you recommend just kind of holding your heart as well and identifying that emotion?
Yeah, for anxiety, I like to do the Byron Katie or the question the thought. So we're usually only getting anxiety because we're believing a thought that's not true. We only suffer when we believe a thought is true. And
Okay.
so I'm going to get COVID and die. Like that would
Right.
be the thought that would create
Right.
anxiety in a social situation during COVID, right? Or I have social anxiety. And it's like, well, can I know 100% without a shadow of a doubt that that's true?
Hmm.
Mm, like I would bet someone's life on it that I'm going to get COVID and die.
Right.
Like, no, you can't. Actually, it has
Right.
like a 98% survival rate, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
or however much, I don't know exactly what it is. But so if you just question the thought, like, is this thought real? Is this thought mine? Or is this from the media and programming and from my parents or
Who
society?
knows?
Who knows,
Right.
right? Like, but is this thought true and is this thought mine? How do I act when I believe this thought is true? Well, I get anxiety.
Hmm.
And then the other question would be, who am I without this thought? Well, I'd be free and peaceful and loving. And then I would show up with an open, warm heart, and people would respond to me in that way, which would actually get rid of anxiety because we're wired for connection. People die without connection. And when you actually have deep, meaningful connection, it calms your vagus nerve, which so when you get anxiety, your body's getting into fight or flight. So a lot of it's just like nervous system, but it's nervous system and the thought. So if you can question the thought and then calm the nervous system with the breath.
Oh, I love that. So,
Yeah.
okay. So kind of like
Mhm.
separate the two
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So before you question the thought, if you're still really activated, like if you're in anxiety, like you're not going to be able to do the questioning. So then you would be like, oh, okay. Do box breath. Like hold your breath. There's a really good breath that calms the vagus nerve. If you breathe in for 4, you hold for 7, you breathe out for 8. And so if you just do that like 3 or 4
I
times,
tried that actually just the other
yeah.
week. I was having just a lot going on and just, I took a minute out because it's funny. Brent will remind me, he's like, you need to breathe,
Mhm.
which is hilarious. But
Yeah.
anyway, but, and I do catch myself. I don't
Mhm.
think we do breathe like
Yeah.
very
No,
well.
I
Like
will
we're
catch
just,
myself being like,
I'll be like, oh, okay, just
yeah.
little tiny breaths. And then I'm like, am I breathing? I don't know. Maybe I'm not breathing. But I like that. But even just kind of taking that minute
Mhm.
to just calm down. Sometimes I play like a little bit of music, just calming, and doing a box breath so it was like, I think I did like in
4,
for
4, 4.
4, I did like 4, 4, 8, I think.
Mhm.
So I did like
Yeah.
in for 4, hold for 4, and then slowly release
Mhm.
over 8 seconds.
Yeah.
And it just almost instantly puts you back, into where you're in a calm space. It's
Mhm.
amazing. Like if you
Mhm.
try that
Yeah.
at home, I think you'd be really surprised at how
Mm.
fast, like
Mhm.
if you're just having even a frantic day or something, just try it. And I think you'd be surprised at what it does
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know so well that okay so all very interesting things, and I think it's really timely because one of the other things we were talking about was just even kind of season for goals, and
Mhm.
one of the things I'm trying to change right now, typically, we all do the New Year's goals, and everything, and April gave me this idea and said, actually goals should be more for spring because that's kind of more in alignment with the earth,
Mhm.
the change and kind of new birth, new life. And I've tried to now kind of adjust as
Mhm.
well on some of my personal, I don't like calling them goals. How about, kind of your vision or things that you're looking forward to in the future. But I'm trying to kind of relook at that in a different light. And
Yeah.
so maybe just shed some light on why is it that it's better to kind of set those kind of goals or expectations, vision all in the spring.
Yeah, so I think we forget as humans, like we're okay with seasons, right? We're okay with like winter, everything dies. Like in the fall, the leaves go. The trees aren't like worried about losing all their leaves. I'm like, oh, my leaves, you know. Like we also, as humans, have seasons. We have seasons in our life. We have seasons. Like we can go with the seasons. Like winter
Hmm.
time is a time to hibernate. The darker days, it's colder. Um, it's actually just energetically not the time. It's a time to go inward and let things die that need to die. And then,
And it's not a bad time. It's just
yeah,
more of like it's a
yeah,
purposeful
it's
kind of time.
self-reflection. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like inward, like, oh, what do I want to create? Like getting clarity, right? Like
Hmm.
what goals do I want to bring? What is my vision for this life? Like it gives you time to like nestle in by the fire with your blanket and your little
Right.
puppy and just be like,
You're right. And
hmm.
just even like I feel like I don't have as many things in the evenings.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a little bit nice if I can be done with work a little
Yeah.
bit earlier, but just actually getting a little more sleep because I
Mm-hmm.
think in summer I get a little too chaotic.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, the sun's
Party.
out, party. Okay, let's
Yeah.
swim until, 10 p.m. or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So you're saying kind of that springtime, so winter time traditionally, a lot of times when people are setting goals, it's in the
Mhm.
winter, right?
Yeah, and, like, I follow astrology, and I also do, like, Celtic shamanism classes, and so Ostera is there's, like, the equinoxes, so it's half day and half night. So it's March 21st, and it's called Ostera, it's the spring equinox, and it's also we're entering into Aries season. So if you're familiar with astrology, Aries is the first of the signs. So the astrological new year starts in April, the end
I
of
did
March.
not know that. Okay,
Yeah.
this is all news
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Aries is fire, right? So I'm an Aries with an Aries rising. So I've got lots of fire. I'm sure you can tell. But like so it's the first sign. So it's like, okay, now's the time to ignite those fires and to like plant those seeds. It's energetically the world is
The
coming
world is
alive.
changing. Right.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's like that's the time stuff starts to sprout out and that's the time to plant the seeds and that's the time to kind of get that fire so that by the summertime you can start to see the things grow that you are planting right now. So yeah, March or April is the best time to create goals or visions or start new things, like new
Kind of
intentions.
new.
And
Okay.
then the balance of the spring equinox is half day, half night. So it's a balancing, right? So it's
Hmm.
like things come into balance. Like in the winter, it's dark. So there's a lot of darkness. Darkness isn't bad, it's just cozy and inward shadow
Yeah.
things. And then in the summer, we have longer days. So when we hit the summer equinox, it will be the longest day of the year. I think it's also like June
It's like June
21st or something like
21st
that.
usually or
Yeah, and
something.
so that's like the lightest. So that's like really
Okay.
when your light is going to be big, and you'll start to see a lot of the things that you're doing now, creating the balance to come into light. So if you
Okay.
can be, it's just being more intentional
Okay.
with the seasons and yourself, and
Yeah.
yeah,
I love
it feels good.
that. Okay, because I think, like it was funny. I was even just talking to Brent yesterday and I was just like there's things that I get excited about summertime
Mhm.
because it's like, you're up late, there's a lot of sunshine, but it's kind of exhausting.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm trying to do even this year is, take some time and not just live all the time going, going, going,
Hmm.
which
Yeah.
I think we all struggle with a
Hmm.
lot. We get
Yes.
invited to cool things. We get, it's like, oh, I'd love to go to this and I'd love to go to that. And sometimes you just have to, take a minute and take a little time off or just have like I can feel when I go too much,
Hmm.
like if I'm working too much, I actually feel it like the older I've become, like I feel it take a toll on my body,
Hmm.
which I think is a real thing.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
it's like an exhaustion that not just mentally but physically as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah.
And so I kind of know when I've hit that, but I don't want to do that again, by the
Yeah.
way. Like
Yeah.
I'm trying to practice a little more self-care. And like I said, I'm
Yeah.
new into all of this, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just learning, and I think a lot of people that are my clients and friends that watch this as well. I think I read an interesting article about basically like they called it the sandwich generation,
Mm.
which I think a lot of people are struggling with,
Mhm.
because we have parents that we're taking care of. Like we have our parents are in their 80s,
Mhm. Mhm.
and doing well for the most part. But there's, there's, a
Mhm.
lot that goes into that.
Mhm.
And then we've got younger kids.
Mhm.
And so, and we still have careers, we're still working. And so, when I've talked to a lot of my friends that are about my age, they're in that right now. They're like, I'd like to set goals and vision, but they're like, I'm barely surviving because
Mhm.
I'm taking care of kids, I've got parents, I've got a job, I've got all these other things, and and it seems very weighty,
Mhm.
on
Mhm.
them. And so I think it's a real struggle right now.
Yeah.
But I love that just about breathing. Do you have any like apps that you recommend for that?
I don't use apps.
Oh, really? Okay.
I record like affirmations on like my voice note with just a background
I
sound, and
love
I'll
that.
play it to myself. And I just do YouTube. I just like to look up
Okay.
certain things for YouTube. I really like Jeff Foster. He has really good meditations. I do. I get bored really easily, so I can't do something like my consistency is having something that grounds me every day that's
Mm,
different. Like so I
right.
consistently
Okay, that
like
makes
today
sense to me.
I did EFT tapping today and some ocean breath. So ocean breath is where you breathe up and you sigh. And so like I'll do ocean breath like
Oh, I
throughout the
like
day,
that.
all the day, but I don't like I'll just oh, I like this meditation or oh, this feels good. It's very much for me a very feeling sensation of like what
Mhm.
feels like is what I need today. And so
Okay. Oh, I love
I'm kind
that.
of
So,
different in
and
that way.
YouTube, I'm sure has a lot, which is a great idea. I have one that's called Othership,
Mm.
and I think I have Calm
Yeah,
also.
calm's good. Yeah.
I've used that, but I've also used Othership. There's one that like at night, it's like a 5 minute one, and
Mhm.
sometimes I just need that just to kind of forget about the day because again, sometimes I'll be thinking of all the things and I can't relax. So I love that. So what other kind of tips do you have? Because as we're right now heading into spring, even though it
Mhm.
just snowed,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
we're in. I think we're in spring. I don't
We're
know,
in Utah
but we're
spring,
in
to
Utah
be clear.
spring mode.
Yeah.
What do you suggest right now to people, and what should they be doing in order to get kind of clarity or kind of around this vision? What
Mhm.
are some steps that they could take right now?
Yeah, and I can I'll send you a link for a freebie that I have. It's
Oh, I
5
love that.
rituals of self-love.
Oh,
So, I think self-love and worthiness, it always comes back to intimacy with self, connection to self, right? And so in the 5 tips, it's there's some breath work, there's eye gazing. I would just say if you're feeling anxiety, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling like you're looking outside of yourself, like my career is my thing and now I don't have my career, or my kids were my thing and now my kids are growing up and you're having this like loss of identity. The best is to always come back to self. And that can be really uncomfortable. So
yes.
creating safety is important. So just noticing, where do you feel safe in your body right now? Can you access some level of safety? Like for me, it's almost always in my roots or my
Mhm.
heart. So
Mhm.
if I can just be like, okay, I feel safe, I am safe, breathe into it, drop the story, breathe, and then, a lot of it's the younger part of yourself, the shadow part that's feeling scared. So
Mm.
a lot of the anxiety is like comes from childhood. From 0 to 7, all of our patterns are created, and 95% of everything that we are operating from is unconscious from
Okay.
childhood. So if you can just even start looking at yourself in the mirror, look in your left eye, which is your receiving eye,
Oh,
and
okay.
just be like, Heather, I love you. You're doing so good. And just give yourself a
I
little,
love
just
this.
be
I'm like,
compassionate, be gentle, be gentle. We're so hard on ourselves. I need to get here. I need to be here. I need to do this. I need to do this. And there's this
and it
rush.
was hard. I'm gonna be honest. It was really
Yeah.
hard to do some of this for me
Yeah.
because I tend to work in kind of a masculine
Hmm.
arena, and so I was like, okay, I need to get in touch, right?
Yeah.
And I love that. So okay, so you can look in your left eye.
Hmm.
You said
Hmm.
okay. I remember
And you can
hearing
just do it while
this.
you're brushing your teeth,
Yeah.
just when you walk past a mirror, just be like, oh, I see you. You're doing so
Okay.
good.
You're doing good.
You're doing
Okay. So
good.
maybe I just need to be like, okay, Heather, you can do this. Yes.
Yeah.
But, and again, I think for work, I feel like, I can do this. I get very accomplished. I get very driven.
Mhm.
Um, but then I think balancing out also needs of others
Mhm.
is really hard
Mhm.
because, I've got married kids, I've got a grandbaby. I'm gonna have another
Oh,
grandbaby
that's
soon. And,
exciting. Yeah.
and then we've got my parents and Brent's parents, and you've got siblings, and you've got
Mhm.
neighbors, you've got like all of these people in your life,
Mhm.
right? And I think that gets a little overwhelming because you're trying to please everyone,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
I think that's the thing I've noticed is that I have to sometimes just go back to say, okay, what is it I need
Mhm.
also, and that
Yes.
it's not selfish. I mean, I think that
Yeah.
if I'm feeling good, I
Mhm.
actually can get more done, you know?
Yeah. Well, and you give from the heart. So, like, it doesn't feel good to receive out of obligation. It actually creates resentment. And you can energetically feel that, like, oh, here, I'm helping you move, but I really didn't want to. And you can, so are we done moving yet? And it's
That's a
like,
good point.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really, it's best to be full of yourself. Like Oprah's like, I think she said, if I'm not full of myself, who else would I be full of?
Right. Right.
Like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, good
And
point.
self-centered is being centered in self. So when you're centered in self and you're full of your cup, you can give from the heart and it feels good. You actually have more to give because there's not anger, there's not resentment. You're not self-sacrificing.
Hmm.
And then you're giving permission for other people to do that. And then they might not need as much help
And it's
because
not
they're
as a
taking care of
chore.
themselves.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
because then it doesn't seem as kind of like an obligation,
Hmm.
right? But
Yeah.
it's something that's more sincere,
Yeah.
right? Oh,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, these were all amazing tips. And I love, right now, I'm in the process of kind of reevaluating some things because as we are in spring,
Hmm.
I'm like, you know what do I want my summer to look like?
Yeah.
And the other thing and this is just something I've been concentrating on, is not taking a million goals in all these other arenas,
Hmm.
like you and I have talked about that, but really kind of concentrating on one thing.
Hmm.
So it's like, okay, what is the one thing I want to do to improve myself right now?
Hmm.
What is the one thing I want to do to improve my spirituality? What is my one thing I want to do to improve my relationships?
Hmm.
And so I feel like, we all kind of used to make those laundry lists of things, and then nothing gets checked off
Hmm.
also,
Hmm. Yeah.
but what's really been helping me is to just kind of have one idea,
Hmm.
right? And just not go too crazy, but something that I could easily identify, that if somebody's asking me, then I can, basically say, okay, I know what I'm working on,
Hmm.
and kind of having a season also, instead of an exact, like, by December 31st,
Hmm.
I want this. It's
Yeah.
like I'm kind of giving myself a season,
Yeah.
to do things. And for some reason, that's just really helped me a
Yeah.
lot.
I love that.
So anyway, but I have loved talking to April, and April has a website. So maybe just tell people how they can get a hold of you also.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can follow me on Instagram. It's April Benencosa on Instagram. And then I have a website where you can download the 5 rituals of self-love. And yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
have
what's
like,
your website?
oh, it's aprilbenencosa.com. So
Real
I'm the only
hard.
April Benencosa that I
Yeah,
know of. So it should be pretty easy to
exactly.
find.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on
Yeah.
today. And we'll have to have you again because I think this is a good thing, to remind ourselves, because, as much as we want to accomplish in work and everything, we still, we're human beings,
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
here to have this amazing life
Hmm.
experience
Yeah.
and experience joy in the journey. And I think there's nothing, harder for me than when you have friends or even yourself, right? Or family members that are struggling,
Yeah.
and you just don't know what to say or how to help them. And
Hmm.
so I really appreciate you coming on
Yeah.
today.
Thank you for
So
having me.
thanks
I
so
loved
much.
it. It was wonderful.
Well, thanks. We'll
Yeah.
have you again.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on High on Utah.